They thought tying her to a tree would break her, but one call changed everything. Because the man they underestimated wasn't just a husband, he was dealt a force. And when he arrived, the hunters became the hunted. The air was heavy with dust and the smell of gasoline when the nightmare began, the kind of quiet rural evening where the world seemed calm until violence ripped through it, and she, a woman who had lived her whole life with dignity and strength, suddenly found herself dragged from her car by a pack of laughing men whose faces were hidden under shadows and cruelty, their boots pounding against the dirt road as they tied her hands so tightly that her wrists burned, forcing her to stumble forward until they threw her against a tree and lashed thick rope around her body, pinning her to the rough bark, splinters biting her skin, her heart hammering as panic mixed with rage. But even as fear tried to suffocate her, she remembered the lesson her husband had given her long ago. Never let them see you break, because strength isn't just in your body, it's in your spirit. And though her body trembled, her spirit clung to that truth, especially because hidden in her shoe was a tiny device he had built for her. A beacon so small no gang could find it, one press enough to send a single word. Help. To the only man who could save her. And as the gang laughed, mocking her, tugging at her hair, one even pressing a knife against her cheek to watch her flinch, she forced her breathing steady, her eyes closing just long enough to press her heel against the button, sending a signal racing through satellites and networks until it buzzed on the phone of a man hundreds of miles away, a man who, at that moment, was just leaving a safe house after a quiet mission, thinking of her smile and the promise he had made never to leave her unprotected. And when he saw the word glowing on the screen, all calm evaporated, his chest tightening with fire, because this wasn't just any woman, this was his wife, and he wasn't just any husband, he was dealt a force, a soldier forged in the crucible of war, who had faced death in deserts and jungles, in bombed cities and freezing mountains, who had pulled brothers from fire and carried secrets heavier than steel, and yet nothing in his career had ever made his heart race like seeing her in danger. So he swung his leg over the black motorcycle parked nearby, gunned the engine, and tore into the night with wind slashing his face, his mind already in combat mode, calculating terrain, estimating gang sizes, rehearsing tactics, each heartbeat a countdown to war. While back at the tree the gang was careless, thinking themselves wolves, unaware that they were sheep waiting for the wolf hunter. Their leader, a tall man with greasy blonde hair and a leather jacket, grinned as he struck her across the face, demanding she beg for mercy, and when she didn't, when she only stared at him with a defiant fire that made his grin falter, he leaned close, whispering promises of pain, promises meant to shatter her. But inside she clung to one truth. He is coming, and that thought became her armor, carrying her through each blow, each insult, each cruel laugh, until far off the sound of an engine echoed faint through the night, a sound dismissed by the gang as some farmer's truck, but her heart knew, and her lips curved just barely, a ghost of a smile, because the hunter was near. Minutes later, in the shadows of the tree line, her husband crouched, his body low, his eyes scanning with the patience of a predator, counting enemies. 8 visible, maybe more. Marking positions, the leader near her, 2 on guard with rifles, others smoking and laughing, untrained, careless, not expecting death to walk among them, but death had come in the form of a man with calloused hands and eyes that had seen too much, a man whose every motion was honed by years of brutal training, who knew how to vanish into shadows and strike like lightning, and with silent breath he unsheathed his knife, slipping behind the first guard, one hand clamping the man's mouth, the blade slicing his throat in a swift, practiced motion, the body lowered to the ground with barely a whisper, and before the blood had cooled he was on the second guard, twisting his neck with a crack that was swallowed by the laughter of the gang, and then he moved, faster, smoother, weaving between shadows until a pistol coughed quietly, the suppressed round punching into another man's chest, dropping him like a puppet with cut strings, panic starting to ripple as the survivors realized something was wrong, one shouting a warning before a bullet silenced him, another firing wildly into the dark only to take steel between his ribs, and soon the clearing was chaos, the woman's heart thundering as flashes of muzzle fire lit glimpses of her husband, moving like a ghost, never in the same place twice, his eyes sharp, his movements ruthless, the training of a lifetime unleashed without restraint, because this wasn't just a mission, it was vengeance wrapped in love, and as the gang fell one by one, the leader grew desperate, dragging her hair back, pressing his knife to her throat, screaming into the darkness, "Come out or she dies." But her husband didn't flinch, didn't rush, his mind cold steel, his voice calm as he stepped into the glow of headlights, gun leveled, eyes locked on the man's, and in that moment the leader saw what the others had missed. This wasn't a husband, this wasn't just a soldier, this was a force of nature, and fear cracked through his arrogance, his knife hand trembling even as he tried to snarl. But before he could press the blade her husband moved, faster than sight, a single shot ringing out, the bullet punching through the leader's shoulder, the knife clattering away, and then the soldier was on him, slamming him into the dirt with the fury of a storm, fists breaking bones, rage spilling through every blow until the man lay broken and silent, and finally he turned to her, cutting the ropes with shaking hands, pulling her into his arms, his voice breaking as he whispered her name, and though bruised and battered she smiled, whispering back, "I knew you'd come," and he held her tighter, swearing never again to let her out of his sight. The night around them littered with silence and fallen bodies, a battlefield born from love, and as the first light of dawn crept across the horizon, they walked away together, stronger, unbroken, a living reminder that some vows are unshakable, some loves are unbreakable, and some men, Delta Force men, are the last ones you should ever threaten, because when you tie a soldier's wife to a tree, you don't just invite a rescue, you invite a war, and war had come for them, swift, merciless, and unstoppable.